Hey to all of Stormie's following. My name is Mick Collins with Ceiba Tree Consulting, and Stormie has been gracious enough to ask me to cover the topic of Jupiter entering Taurus while she is in the process of basically reworking her life to better suit what she and her family need. So while she's in the process of doing that, I am going to cover this video for all of you. And just a little introduction before we get started on Jupiter and Taurus. What my practice focuses on is helping people to be able to figure out, well, not figure out what their goal is, but when they already have a goal set for what they want for the next year, I help them break that goal down into baby steps based off of a concept called zodiacal releasing, which looks at the time frames of your life in which it is, I guess the best way of describing it would be most likely for it to occur. And that is based off of both your lot of fortune and your lot of spirit. So I have the information below to head over to my website, and you can check out my blogs. You can check out my other YouTube videos. There are a host of free forms and digital downloads that are available on my site. You don't have to pay anything for them. We have added them below to those links so that you can head over and get those for free. And that's pretty much it about me. Oh, I lied. I have a bachelor's in political science and international relations. Spanish is my second language out of many languages that I have had to learn over the years because I am a very mercurial person. And I have had lots of different life experiences before I got here. And part of what allows me to work well with my clients is that I have a clinical doctorate in audiology, and a huge portion of that is counseling people through difficult emotions. So a big thing that I will always say is feel your feels. And if you don't know how to do that, that's okay. I can walk you through that as well. So moving on to the topic at hand, and that topic is Jupiter entering Venus's sign of Taurus. So if we start off, we're going to start off with Jupiter, okay? Because I'm assuming that all of you love education because that is what Stormie does best. Jupiter is the planet of growth, abundance, and just is a, what's the best way of describing Jupiter and being real? Yes, he grows things, but Jupiter is based off of the mythology of Zeus. And for those of you who were not neurodivergent, spicy children who fell in love with Greek mythology, Zeus was a partying god who had an extensive philosophy on life, but his morals a little shady. He liked to drink a lot. He liked to party a lot. He loved to have sex. And so even though he was a great ruler and a good god, he also did some really shady stuff. So when Jupiter helps things to grow, he doesn't always know the difference between growing things that are good for you or growing things that are not in your best interest. And sometimes he requires that in that growth, you have to put an effort in. He is not Venus. Venus just hands you things most of the time. Jupiter makes you work for them. Okay, so he's going to give you drive in the Taurus area of your chart. Now, when we are talking about Taurus, Taurus is obviously ruled by Venus. And so this is going to be a loving energy, but it's also an earth sign. So it's going to be more grounded and level-headed. a lot of times in pop astrology, you will hear that Taurus is very materialistic. And to a certain degree, that is correct. But if we go back to the original documents and what an astrologer, Vedius Valens, said about Taurus, the material things are more along the lines of gardening, the actual earth, anything that has to do with plants, animals, being outside, all of the material things that you required in order to thrive and enjoy life. Yes, it can mean being luxurious. When you combine the two, both Jupiter and Venus, that is something that you can see as a theme of these beautiful, elaborate parties that are just champagne overflowing and lots of food and beautiful gowns. That's what you can think of when you have Jupiter entering the sign of Taurus. Now, Jupiter, understanding Jupiter in Taurus means that we kind of have to look at the cycles of Jupiter. And Jupiter, every 11 to 12 years, is when he goes from being in Taurus to then being in Taurus again, or being in Libra and then being in Libra again. It's an 11 to 12-year cycle for this planet. The last time that Jupiter was in Taurus was June 4th of 2011. Side note, if you see me looking off to the side, it's because my memory is terrible. And so I will do all of the research for whatever topic it is that I'm going to be talking about. And then I have to look over to the side because I just forget. And so I need to remind myself about what I wrote down. Anyway, so the last time that Jupiter was in Jupiter was in Taurus, Saturn was in Libra. So for those of you who have Saturn in Libra in your birth chart, this was your Saturn return. So for you all, it might not have been the most pleasant experience, but this time around, Saturn is not in Libra. Saturn is in Pisces. Now, when Jupiter entered Taurus in 2011, Venus was also present in Taurus, okay? And Mars was stuck between Venus and Jupiter. So even though he was a troublemaker, his trouble or ability to cause trouble was severely diminished because he was squished between the two benefic planets. So that was very helpful. Let's see what else. The vibe when Jupiter entered Taurus was a quest for fame and glory in the career or public image, especially for Leo rising people. The moon was in her own sign of Cancer, and even though Saturn was stationed retrograde at that point in time, because he was in Venus's sign of Libra, which is where he's exalted, he still had power, okay? But there was a wonderful reception between the two. So it wasn't like he was causing problems so much for most people, unless you were having your Saturn return. But he was able to also help Jupiter out. And so we kind of see these themes throughout the pop history of what happened between when Jupiter first entered Taurus in 2011 and then before it went retrograde, and it went retrograde in August, at the end of August of 2011. So in that period between June 4th and the end of August, some of the things that are very Jupiter themed were that, let's see, we had the 2011 MTV Awards. And this is when Beyonce announced publicly to the world that she was pregnant. So that's a very like pregnancy, motherhood, Taurus, grounded, and it's Beyonce. So it's this elaborate showing of motherhood. We also had, because like I said, if you don't take care of your stuff, Jupiter will grow problems for you, especially when it comes to elected officials, because that is one of the themes with Jupiter is politics, people who are worthy of crowns or not so worthy, but just have really good PR teams. We had that huge debacle with Anthony Weiner or Weiner. How do you say his last name? I think it's Weiner, where he was forced to resign from his political position because he could not stop sending people unsolicited or solicited pictures of his privates. And so it just completely and totally, it did not work out well for him because he could not put in the effort to not behave in a way that is very Zeus-like. Like it's very Zeus-like. So then we also had, oh my goodness, Charlie Sheen. And that started in January and February, but when he tried to fix his image, he was everywhere in June and July. He was talking on every single show. He was trying to get people to understand why he was the way he was and how great and superior he was. And he actually ended up getting a role on a TV show called Anger Management. So some other things that happened politically, the Obama administration ended the food pyramid and started doing the food plate instead. There was the cattle plague ended. And there was also a Farm Aid concert that happened on August 11th. Now, here's another one, is that Usain Bolt, he disqualified from a 100-meter dash, and that happened on August 28th. And when we go into the retrograde information, you'll see what ends up happening when he goes back over that topic for him. And also because Jupiter is Jupiter, and he can sometimes, on the flip side of a positive, be very lazy and just kind of want to sit back and chill. The song that was nominated to be the song of summer for 2011 was Bruno Mars's The Lazy Song, which just kind of fits everything now, doesn't it? Now, the shadow period, and for those of you who don't know what a shadow period is, when a planet has a cycle, it enters a sign, it will then go direct, it will hit a point in which it will then retrograde. And then after it retrogrades for a while, it'll hit a point where it stations direct again. The degree in which it hits retrograde and the degree in which it stations direct let you know the shadow period, or the period of time that it's going to then trace its path. Okay, so for Jupiter, when it goes direct, when it goes retrograde, you look at that degree, and then you look at the degree in which it goes direct, and it lets you know the themes that are going to be covered. So you start looking at the date of the shadow period when it begins, and that lets you know that all of the information from when it hits that shadow period to the point where it goes retrograde, and then to the point it goes direct again, and then ends that shadow period, all of those things are going to be rehashed 3 times, because you have the forward, you go back over it, and then you go forward again. Okay, and so for the shadow period in 2011, within 2 days of Jupiter entering Taurus, we have that shadow period, and it went retrograde on August 31st. Ooh, one of the things I forgot. Kim K got married on August 28th, I believe. It was at the end of the direct cycle. She got married to Chris Humphreys, I believe. So now we're into the retrograde portion, and the theme or the vibe really for the when Taurus goes retrograde on August 31st was a sense of like just keep swimming, you know, from what is it? Finding Nemo, when Dory's like, just keep swimming, just keep swimming. No matter how terrible things are, you just have to keep trekking through it. And so that was the theme for the retrograde of Jupiter and Taurus in 2011. The Sun and Mercury were able to help each other out, even though Venus couldn't really help at all because she was not happy with her placement. I don't remember exactly where she was, but there was a harmonious relationship between both Venus and Jupiter with where she was. Now, there were not a whole lot of resources helping out, but there was a shining of light on the resources that you did have so that you could communicate who you are and what your needs are better to your partner. Even though the mental health might feel like it's a little bit aggressive and scatterbrained because Mars was in Cancer at that point in time. Saturn was direct, it was no longer retrograde, and the moon was in her joy in the third house with Saturn. So it was allowing for both emotions and the will of the people to create laws for the community. So at this time, though, with this retrograde, Kim K and Chris Humphreys filed for divorce. It was only within 72 days of when they had this huge, elaborate wedding that was on TV for everyone to see. 72 days. All that marriage lasted. And then when it comes to politics, one of the people who was running, I believe, for president, his name was Rick Perry. He could not remember the three branches of government during a debate. And this is part of when you don't put in the work, Jupiter doesn't give you anything. You need to do the work in order for him to give you what you want. And this is on a political scale. So this is pretty big. Let's see. Katy Perry and Russell Brand filed for divorce at this point in time. There was the population of the world officially reached 7 billion people in 2011. And then also some big things were Occupy Wall Street. And so this is because Jupiter is also known for philosophy. What you'll see during this period of time is that there are groups of people who are fighting for those philosophies. When I say fighting for philosophy, what I mean is they are fighting for their own beliefs. Regardless of where you fall on the political spectrum is irrelevant. Okay, it does not matter whether you are right-leaning, whether you're left-leaning, whether you're right in the middle, whatever your philosophy is what you're going to be fighting for. And so, yeah. So Jupiter then, oh wait, I go back. There was also in October of 2011, there was the Stop Online Piracy Act that was introduced as a bill. And then Usain Bolt comes back with the fastest run on record during that time period on September 11th of 2011. Now, Jupiter went direct on December 25th of 2011. And at this time, the vibe was way happier than when he first entered Taurus. Venus was then in Aquarius and Saturn was still in Libra at his tail end of being in Libra. So they had a harmonious relationship with each other. there's a beautiful trine and all the planets are in each other's signs. So it's just a lot of harmonious energy and all of the planets are kind of helping each other out. So even though Venus has more boundaries by being in Aquarius, she's also able to flow because it is an air sign. And that way she's able to remain just gorgeous and unbothered. There's also a beautiful relationship between Sun, Moon, and Jupiter, and partners and friends were able to get along splendidly, and there are lots of parties. So there was possibly an increase in inheritance happening for people during this time. Now, by January, there's the largest blackout internet protest because of that Stop Online Piracy Act. So people were not happy with that act. And you can look it up and see what it was about, but it did not get to pass because people are like, no, we don't want this. Once again, standing up for your philosophy and what your beliefs are. Now, a couple of big movies that were very popular during this time, there's two that come to mind for me. One was The Hunger Games. Literal fighting, ground fighting for your philosophies, for your freedom, okay? As well as a lot of the themes were getting dressed up, wearing beautiful gowns, being on TV to prove your worth to other people. It fits the theme of Jupiter in Taurus beautifully. The other movie, The Avengers. Once again, you have a really rich superhero who basically funds an entire department to be able to fight for the freedom of Earth against the aliens. It was one of the biggest box office hits of that time. So was Hunger Games. Huge. Now, Jupiter's post-shadow period ended when Jupiter hit 10 degrees on March 18th of 2011. And that is when Venus is actually back in Taurus at this point in time. So it lent massive support without any of the malefic planets getting in the way. So Jupiter then entered Gemini on June 11th of 2012. And it once again joined Venus at this point in time. So this time Venus was stationed retrograde and had become a morning star. So she was more assertive and dominant in her relationship. And Saturn actually went retrograde again and ended up in Libra during 2012, in June 2012. So the vibe when Jupiter entered Gemini was a sense of pride for all of the work and all of the effort that you put in back in 2011 when Jupiter was in Taurus the entire time. Now, some of the things that happened during the post-shadow period between March 18th and June 11th, when Jupiter entered Gemini, we have the Diamond Jubilee for the Queen of England happened during this time. Huge party, like the biggest party that England had put on in a very long time, which not including the wedding of Will and Kate. I don't remember when that happened, but this was the Diamond Jubilee. The Rock beat John Cena. A Taurus man beat John Cena, who was like the top dog in the World Federation of Wrestling. So we have a very earthy energy. It's wrestling. So that is one of those sports that is very on the ground, flying. It's, you know what I'm talking about. We also have the Lion King, which beat out Phantom of the Opera for the most money on Broadway. And if the Lion King is not a Taurus energy movie. Energy movie. I don't know. I believe, isn't the Lion King also based off of Hamlet? I think so. I'm not entirely sure. Um, Also, you have, like I said, we have the Avengers that premiered during this time, and Veep, which was a TV show about the vice president of the United States of America. And that premiered on TV. So once again, we have a lot of political themes. We have a lot of fighting for your freedom, fighting for your rights, huge parties. These are all the themes that we saw the last time that Jupiter was in Taurus. So now, this time around, on Tuesday, May 16th of 2023 is when Jupiter enters Taurus, where he will stay until 2024. And in my general forecast, which we will link the video for below, I believe, I had said that there's a feeling of happiness at having hard work pay off. Okay, so it can, it's the it's a recognition from colleagues and friends that you can basically handle your stuff. Okay. There's a possibility that we will see the results of huge court cases coming to light. We might see how the big WGA writers' strike is going during this time period. There's also a possibility, because the last time that Jupiter was in Taurus, there was an end of the cattle plague, right? There's a possibility that the material goods that we have that are in shortage right now, those shortages end. And so here in the United States, we have a shortage on baby formula. We still have it. We had it before. It hasn't really gotten much better. There's also apparently a rice shortage that is happening right now worldwide, so we might see that turnarounds for the better, and be rectified. So these are the things that I kind of see as themes this time around. Remember, it's going to be a combination of political, philosophical, beautiful gowns, like big parties. Those are the benefit things. On the flip side, some of the negative things that we might see are people who have addictions, who haven't been able to work towards making those addictions. Sorry, my camera is gonna go. Working towards making those addictions less of an overbearing theme in their lives and getting the help that they need, it's not going to go well. Okay, so it'll make that so much worse, whatever the addiction is. The last time, this is when we ended up seeing Whitney Houston pass away. And so Jupiter can either make your life great, or he can just make certain things absolutely awful and hard. Because he can't tell the difference between good and bad. He really can't sometimes. And good and bad it's a relative concept. What's good for me might not be good for you, and because he can't differentiate, between good and bad, you have to be a little bit more aware of what is good for you and what isn't that great for you, and then work towards that. So if we are then looking at the entire cycle, we have Jupiter entering, like I said, on May 16th, and then the shadow period for the retrograde cycle begins on June 11th, which isn't even, it's like 3 weeks later. And then Jupiter stations retrograde on September 5th of 2023, and then he stations direct on June 30th, and then enters Gemini in May of 2024. So for each rising sign, let's see what Jupiter in Taurus has in store possibly for you. So for Aries, this is happening in your second house of personal resources. And so when I say personal resources, I don't just mean what's in your bank account. I mean all of the things that you have in your possession and skill set that help support you as you are as a human being, like all the things that you need in order to be you, right? So it could be me, it could be your money, it could be your home, it could be your car, just things that you actually own, right? Material goods. It can also mean, are you a great communicator? Are you an artist? Do you have the ability to, I don't know, are you a gymnast? What are your skill sets? Okay, it could be that. So I was checking to make sure my microphone was picking it up. Now, when we're talking about your resources, sometimes when we send ourselves on new paths, it's best not to tell the whole world about what you're doing, because other people will influence what you've made as a choice for you. I'm not saying that they're naysayers and they don't want you to succeed. I'm saying that as human beings, we all have our own internalized fears. And therefore, sometimes when we really love people, we try and protect them by telling them all the ways in which things can go wrong. And it might stop you from pursuing the things that you feel you need in life. I saw that there was another creator that warned us that just because we feel fear doesn't mean there's actual danger. So it's okay to be afraid of something, but if your life actually isn't in danger, you're going to have to kind of get over that fear and realize that, yes, it's a tangible emotion that is valid, but you have to work through it. And so Jupiter spending a little over a year in this house will be beneficial if you put in the effort to work through what kinds of resources you need in order to feel self-confident in who you are and your personal identity. Okay. If think back to the things that happened to you in 2011 and 2012. Okay. And I'm going to say that to everyone. Think back of what happened in 2011 and 2012. That'll best guide you. For Taurus Rising, this is happening obviously in your first house of self, your physical form, how you identify. Sometimes, because the world is the way that the world is, our inner self is different than the person that we present out into the world. And sometimes that's a safety mechanism that is required. So when I say first house and your physical form and how you identify, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're letting the whole world know what you think about yourself. And that's perfectly normal and okay. All right. So what you're going to put your effort in is into thinking about what needs to change with your physical form and with your identity. And for the love of Pete, do not try and change things really fast. You will hurt yourself. Take your time. Make sure you don't hurt your physical body because that's not good. And make sure that in making these changes, if you're making changes to your identity, that because you're taking your time, you're not hurting your reputation with your friends or supporters or online followers or whatever it is. I want you to rely on the gifts of your community, or your siblings. And when I say siblings, they don't have to be biological or by marriage. A lot of the times we have people who we have adopted as siblings. I'm talking about them too. and let them help you. So not necessarily lean on them and let them give you everything, but don't be afraid to ask for help. Okay. Now for Gemini rising people, this is happening in your 12th house of solitude and mental health, as well as hidden enemies. So maybe you're working on having better mental health so that you can enjoy your work. And maybe if you already have wonderful mental health, maybe you're headed into a field of healthcare. Like maybe you're going to be a healthcare worker. And so as a result of you going into healthcare, it increases your finances as a result. Either way, health is going to be a huge topic for you Gemini rising people. Now moving on to Cancer rising. So this is going to be happening in your 11th house of friends, coworkers, and external community, like your online followers or people that you interact with online on a regular basis. So are you putting an effort to meet more people and join different communities? That's going to be for you Cancer rising folks. And I know that it's very emotional, and if you're neurospicy, it's very hard to create relationships with other people and find friends, but you're going to want to put an effort into it. Is it an effort to learn about different cultures or just get out there and interact with other people? And so if you actually put yourself out there, there is a good possibility that you will be well received by other people and create some lasting bonds. And, you know, as human beings, having bonds with other human beings feels really good. For Leo rising, this is happening in your 10th house of career and public image, or how you want the world to know you. What do you want to be called? What are your titles? Is it mom? Is it dad? Is it sir? Is it ma'am? Is it doctor? Is it online influencer? Is it a lawyer? I don't know. Okay, but however it is that you want people to remember you by. This is maybe being maybe having a ghostwriter or a new assistant that you've got is helping to take things off of your plate so that you can concentrate more on your outward appearance. You're putting a lot of effort into your public image, and it could work towards your favor to boost your self-esteem. Moving on to Virgo rising people. This is taking place in your 9th house of higher education, foreign travel, and spirituality. It can also mean publishing. So for all of you, this might be in the form of receiving test results back that you took previously, and it reflects the amount of hard work that you put in to that degree or that certificate. We all know that Virgo rising people have a habit of collecting degrees. So at least that's how it is for me. So this is something that your partner will start to take seriously for you, especially if it ends up being like one of those things that you had as a hobby and then you kind of turned it into something else, or you had a philosophy and or you started getting into something that is a little bit faux pas and not of the general public, right? And your partner's like, I don't know. And when I say partner, it could be a romantic relationship or it could be a working partnership. Okay. For Libra rising people, this is your 8th house of your partner's resources, inheritance, or other people's money, and sometimes taxes. For y'all, it's how you've had your nose to the grind doing menial work and how that's going to pay off for your career. Don't let your partner take credit for your work. Okay. For Scorpio rising people, we have the transit happening in your 7th house of relationships and partnerships. So, have you been putting in the effort to bring more joy to those relationships, to have more fun, to do enjoyable things together? Maybe you've been working on your relationship with a team member so that you can work better together on projects. Whatever it is, it's working for you, so keep it up. Okay. Sagittarius rising, we have this happening in your 6th house of labor and work. It's not your career, because that's a separate topic. This is like paying bills, changing the cat litter, having to make spreadsheets. It's the actual work that goes into the career, or housework. It can also be small animals. So sorry, I just blanked out and imagine somebody having the magical cat distribution and ending up with like 15 or 20 cats, which great. If you are that kind of person and you love cats, I hope that this is something that happens for you. But if you are the kind of person that's like, nope, not for me, just keep that in mind. Okay. It's possible that Jupiter spending a year in this house will be beneficial if you put in the effort for positive things, and doing actual labor. Okay. For Capricorn rising, this is in your 5th house of children, sex, and creativity. So it is putting an effort in finding more fun in life again so that you can have better relationships. If you've gotten wrapped up in the everyday ins and outs of life where you're just kind of doing the same thing every single day and the fun has been sucked out, it's now time to find a new way of doing things and going back to hobbies and enjoying just doing things like that. Now, remember I said Jupiter really is the god of sex. So having him in the house of bearing children, if you do not wish for that, do your due diligence and make sure all of your bases are covered. Okay. Just, it's a red flag. I'm not saying I am a medical professional, but I am not an OB. So take it with a grain of salt. I'm just throwing it out there. And I would highly advise that you do reach out to a medical professional who specializes in that kind of thing, should this be something that you are trying to work towards. Even if you're not trying to work towards it, make sure you go to the correct medical professional. Aquarius rising, this is taking place in your 4th house of home and roots, and it can also apply to your ancestors. Okay, that's what the 4th house can mean. So those who came before you who deserve to be honored. It can be putting an effort into the home. It could be putting an effort into having a relationship with your ancestors who have passed. It can be, maybe it is putting an effort into finding a home that suits your family's needs better. Or doing DIY projects around the house to make it so that the house fits your needs better. So there are a lot of interior designers who are now saying that interior design used to be based off of all of the icing and not the cake. And that theory is that the cake is the colors that you choose, the theme of the house that you choose. So if you are trying to go for a vibe in your house that's very relaxed, you're going to want relaxing colors that goes with that. And then you're going to want to start thinking about functionality of the home and the things that you need. Are you the kind of person who doesn't wear shoes in your house? And so you need a shoe rack by the front door. Are you the kind of person who loses your keys all the time? So you need to have a key hook or a key bowl closer to the front door. Are you the kind of person that loves to read and therefore you just need a really comfy couch that has a whole bunch of shelves behind it so that you can just reach those books and sit down and read with a cozy book? Whatever it is that makes your home feel more like a home and also help you to feel comfortable in that home and work towards your advantage, that's something that you're probably going to want to work on. And if you are trying to buy a home, you're going to want to be a little bit more on the conservative side with your finances, right? So if you get pre-approved for a house and they're like, we're giving you $360,000. Don't buy a house that's worth $360,000. Don't do that. Do like $260,000, because inevitably with a house, something is going to happen and it's going to go wrong. Your heater's going to go. Your oven needs to be replaced. You don't want to be house poor. So don't ever go to the exact or over whatever. Don't do that. Okay. Now, for Pisces rising people, this is happening in your third house of short distance travel, local community, communication, like if you are a writer and you write books or you write scripts or anything along those lines, comic books, whatever it is, it's the house of siblings. It's also the house of modes of transportation. So if you own a car or motorcycle, whatever, what have you. So you could be putting an effort into communicating more or creating more books or something like that. And whatever it is that you are creating, just don't get caught up in your emotions about it. Because if you get caught up in your emotions, like if you, saying this from personal experience, because I've also written a few romance novels, and I have one that is self-published, and I've also gone down like the querying route. When you are a writer, you have to be able to receive constructive criticism about the work that you've created. And if you attach your emotions to that piece of work, when someone comes back to you and they're like, hey, you know what would make this better if you made this character more in depth? Or chapter 3 doesn't really work for me because it feels like it's more rambling and it doesn't attach back to chapter 2. Things like that. Like if someone comes to you with that constructive criticism, you want to take that and be like, all right, the points that they made were kind of valid. I can see how they got there. Let me rework this and make it better. So you're going to be putting an effort into that creative work without feeling like you failed. You didn't. It's just constructive criticism, and you have to take your emotions and you have to set them to the side. And that is pretty much it for going through the houses and what Jupiter in Taurus could mean for all of you. If you have more questions about Jupiter in Taurus and the cycle, remember, he's entering on May 16th. He does not leave until 2024. When he does his retrograde, he does not go back into Aries at any point. He has his whole entire retrograde cycle in Taurus. And it's from basically 0 degrees to 10 degrees and then back to 0 degrees and then 10 degrees again. And yeah, I think that is pretty much it. Like I said at the beginning, I would love if you liked what I had to say and you like my style of a more holistic approach and reading. I do offer readings. I offer zodiacal releasing readings. I offer your natal chart, your solar return type of readings. And I also have all of those forms that are free that help you to look at your goals and break them down into baby steps so that you don't feel as overwhelmed. Because sometimes when you have a big goal, it can feel not just overwhelming, but kind of stifling. And so when you look at your big goal and you work backwards from your big goal and you say, hey, before 2024 ends, I would like to publish a book by myself. And so you start with the end date and you go, okay, well, if this is going to be happening in May of 2024, I'm going to break it down what I need to do in April and what I need to do in March and what I need to do in February. You're just going to work backwards from there. And then you're going to break it up into little things you can do every week to work towards that goal and things you can do every day to work towards your weekly goal and your weekly goal to your monthly goal until you get to your end goal. And sometimes because that can be overwhelming, it helps to bounce those ideas off of someone else. And also when you are looking at your chart and you have the highest probability for those things to happen, you're going to want to base your goal off of when it's most likely for that thing to happen for you, so that you're not wasting your own time and so that you can still feel productive but not have that productivity be associated with your worth as a human being, because you are worthy of all of the good things that are headed your way, always. And we like to keep things simple. Astrology is a language that helps you to be able to see the light at the end of the tunnel and to get the kind of vibe of what's happening in the world so that you can just maneuver your way through the world easier. If astrology gives you stress, then it might not be the thing for you, or the person that you're working with might not be the person that's for you. And that's okay, because everyone communicates differently. But if you're interested in any of the readings that I have available, head on over to my page. All of my social media handles are exactly the same, and I would love to have you. And thank you so much to Stormie for giving me this opportunity and for trusting in me to be able to handle giving this information to your wonderful followers, of whom I have been one for a very long time. And so this is a huge honor. And thank you so very much. Until next time, bye, y'all.